Hi, good morning. Thanks, Michael, and thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you around finance system transformation. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is technology-based and how technology is a key ingredient in how we're in transformation and how the insurance industry is transforming. As Michael said, I've been involved in a number of large transformation programs, some more successful than others, and so I wanted to share my thoughts on some of the key drivers of success. So just to organize myself a bit, I'm going to discuss the drivers of finance transformation, the expected outcomes, and then finally wrap up with just a few thoughts on key considerations before embarking on a transformation. Many insurance organizations are taking a broad look at transformation as the evidence is overwhelming that the global transformation to digital in all aspects of our lives means that the industry really needs to keep up. We need to change if we want to attract and retain customers and employees. We need to change if we need to look at how we use technology to be more efficient, both in the front office operations and in the back office operations. And we need to understand how technology is going to change what we sell and the risks that we're insuring. I expect that you're being told that you need to use RPA, blockchain to streamline the customer buying experience, as well as your operations. You're being told that you need to have a big data solution where IoT is feeding that with gobs and gobs of information, and then you need to use ML and AI to assess and interpret all of that information. So lots of buzzwords that get thrown out there, but and it can be a little bit overwhelming, but just two key things to get your head around. First, the proliferation of data that's changed our lives in many ways already is going to change the way that we buy, sell, and administer insurance. And we all have to just accept that and embrace it and try and be in front of it. Other technology innovations are going to allow us to eliminate the human effort and decision points that to make operations more automated and less prone to error. And the big thing for me is what that means is that it frees all of us up to really focus on more strategic initiatives and moving the industry and our companies forward instead of spending time doing tasks that can be automated. So my guess is that for many in the room, the idea that insurance is ripe for innovation is certainly not a surprise, not something that is shocking to you here. But how these tools can be applied to our industry is probably a little bit less clear. A key message that I'd like you to take away is that getting a big data solution in place and maybe doing some research on machine learning or artificial intelligence for experience studies isn't enough. The primary driver of success or failure in being prepared to be a digital leader is changing the culture of the organization. You really need to create a collaborative and connected organization that's agile, diverse, and really encourages innovation and really even encourages failure. And many insurance companies are still structured where it's a very siloed-based organization, and you don't have the connections between all of the different functions within the overall organizational structure to really facilitate this kind of a big transformation in the way that we work. And that's a real key, is building those bridges so that you can really change the culture of the organization and have the entire team of people working together and pushing in the same direction.
What's interesting about Moore's Law is over time it's really changed in what it's meant. The original concept was every 18 months, the amount of capacitors on a chip will double. Over time, we've seen the ability for customers to do more has really doubled at pretty much the same rate. Part of the goal of what we're trying to offer with Azure is that customers can stop thinking about how many CPUs are they using and even what percentage of that CPU they're using, We're always looking for ways in Azure to do the same task in an easier, faster, cheaper way. It allows people to do more. It allows people to try more. Failure can be expensive. It means you don't try things. What's great about the cloud is that it puts everyone on an equal playing field in a position where they can really try new things without a lot of fear, without a lot of risk. Milliman and Integrate really started very early in our Azure life. They were one of the first customers on the platform. They've been able to grow up with us. We saw their usage grow and we got much more involved, much more engaged. And frankly, they gave us really good feedback on our platform and opportunities for us to improve what we were building. I like to think a lot of the capabilities of our platform today are thanks to Milliman feedback many years ago. The growth of Milliman in those early days was a big part of the realization that insurance was going to be a pretty interesting industry for us. Seeing the result of their application and their customer excitement for what they built with Integrate, it was a pretty inspiring moment for us to realize insurance could be a really great opportunity for the public cloud. As we've continued to innovate, we've added new services, we've added Hadoop-based services, machine learning services, we've added AI capabilities. Working with Milliman to be able to light those capabilities up as part of their Integrate platform is really exciting, because I think it will change again the way in which they think about their product and then the way their customers can take advantage of their product. You know, when I look at what we built with Azure and then what customers like Milliman have built on top of Azure, it's not just about them being able to save a dime. It is really about what they're able to enable their end customers to do. And in this case, it's about reducing the overall cost, reducing the friction, reducing the challenges of the insurance business, and being able to make it more available, more accessible, being able to use algorithms to be able to predict needs of customers, being able to predict how the services and products should change ahead of time, I think will be some really interesting outcomes.
So to give you an introduction to why I played that video, we've done a lot of work with Microsoft and have really embraced the Microsoft Azure platform to move a lot of our technologies and what we're offering to clients to a cloud-based system. And the reason for that, this is just an example of why it's important that you're transforming not just your functions and maybe trying to speed up your finance function, but you're really transforming the platform that the organization runs off of. In moving to Azure, initially our focus was to just have the scale to be able to run the kinds of large-scale projections that were necessary for Solvency II and other regulatory change that was coming. But as we did that, and part of the impetus for really moving to Azure was that it provides you with a platform to be able to then quickly take advantage of all of the other new technologies that are coming along, like artificial intelligence and machine learning, because all of those tools are just built right into the Azure platform. So once you're there, and whether it's Azure or some other modern platform, that's what allows you to then keep innovating quickly. Trying to build something like machine learning or artificial intelligence on top of a 30-year-old platform is really hard. Trying to build it on top of a modern platform is easy because all of the technologies are being built to fit into those, and so you just can, as Corey Sanders said, you can just light it up very easily. So that's the kind of the message, is that it's not just about trying to do a transformation that says, how do I get my working day timetable shortened? It's about using the fact that you need to do a finance transformation to be able to meet all of your new regulatory requirements, and in doing that, make sure that you actually modernize the platforms and modernize what you're looking at so that you can continue to innovate and move forward. Okay, so if I bring this back to finance transformation, the pressures that are really pushing organizations to think about a finance transformation are what you would expect. Certainly the challenging economic and political environment, regulatory change, emerging risks such as cyber, autonomous cars, changing demographics. These are all issues that are squeezing margins, increasing workloads, and exposing us to new risks. And those are the things that are driving most organizations to say, we really need to do something. Internally, the pressures to transform the finance function are really strong as well, and most people are being pushed in these directions too. When you're operating in a mature market, cost management is a primary focus. And so, of course, that's why it's going to be critical to be in a position rather to communicate the cost of doing nothing. And this goes back to what I was mentioning about the new platform. A transformation is not going to be a low-cost proposition, but on the other hand, continuing to maintain legacy systems and try and bolt on solutions for new regulations without starting to take advantage of technological advances is going to have a huge cost mid to long term. So kicking the can down the road isn't going to be a good solution, but you need to look holistically across the entire finance system landscape and determine how to start to move yourselves toward a more modern platform. If you don't, costs are going to continue to escalate, and you're going to have a difficult time attracting and retaining talent. It's going to be tough to get the best people, and you're not going to have the tools that you need to allow you to work as a team of teams, effectively supporting the other areas of the organization. I thought it would be useful to share this schematic. On the next slide, I'm going to show this expanded to the 3 strands that we usually evaluate, but this is one of the first things that we do with companies when we're looking at what would a transformation look like in your organization. So we look at data, systems, and process, but for readability purposes, I'll just first focus on the data strand. So as we speak with companies about finance system transformation, this is how we discuss where they are and where we want to go. It's really critical that you understand, what do I want my end state to be? And you don't have to say, we have to move from here to here in one big jump, but just always know where you're headed. So look at, where are we now in relationship to where we want to be? And how do we move ourselves toward a higher level of maturity? So there's a number of things that you can do to just move yourself further to the right here, but you need to first understand, where am I, and most importantly, where is it that I want to be when we finally sort of get to the end? Although, with the pace of change in technology, I think what you have to recognize is when you think you get to the end, that bar has moved further to the right. So you have to just kind of continue to innovate. But hopefully once you get to that more modern platform, that becomes an easier proposition. So I'm just looking at the data piece. Many of you likely have information flowing into your actuarial models from a number of different sources, but those sources are likely internal legacy admin systems, rather than feeds from social media, pharmacy or medical sources, marketing campaigns, et cetera. For example, as a starter, if you built out a big data solution and you did use machine learning and artificial intelligence, you can move yourself really further to the right there. So you could take all of that data from, as just sort of a simple starting point, you could take all of that data from your legacy admin systems and dump it into a big data solution. You can organize it in there. You don't have to bring in information from other sources to start with, but just as a simple example, one of the things that you can do with machine learning is look at that input data, and rather than having to write a whole bunch of rules about, is my data valid, you can use machine learning techniques to identify outliers, identify pieces of data that don't fit into what that particular piece of information is going to be. So you can quickly use new technologies, new tools to just look for bad data on your input. So really simple example, it's a very easy application of machine learning, but it's a good way to get started. The thing that I really like is on the back end, when you get your output, you're all familiar, you have a whole bunch of output that you get from different models, and then you spend a lot of time trying to figure out, I don't quite understand this answer, how do I drill down, how do I find out what's wrong? There's so much information that's hard to do. That's what machine learning is really good at. It's great at outlier detection. And so you can just have it look at these terabytes of data that you may have generated out of your models, and it can quickly identify for you, here's some things that you should focus on, here's where you should look. So it's just a great way to use new technologies to try and move yourself forward, move yourself further along over to the right in a pretty quick and easy way to do that. Building on top of that, to get further to the right, once you have that big data solution and you're using that for your results, then there's just great visualization tools that you can put on top that have capabilities in them. Like we refer to it as storytelling. So you get your information, and maybe Dermot takes a look at it and says, this looks right. I understand why things are a little different than they were last quarter, and here's why. And he can tell that story, and through commentary, through how he, saving sort of how he's looking through the data, and he can then share that with me. This is all collaborative online. I can take a look at it, I can comment back on it, and we build out this storyboard. Once we're comfortable with that, we can then just share that storyboard with senior management, with the board, and they can interact with that and interactively look at how we built that story up. So it's just a way to communicate in a much easier way, and it's all controlled, locked down, and secured. You have the single source of truth. So these are just some tools that are out there that become available to you once you move yourself to a more modern platform. So, and then just similarly, if you're looking at systems and process, you need to look at the full scope of applications being used, including those hundreds of spreadsheets that you're using on the front end and back end of your process. And you need to evaluate, how do I, over time, start to modernize those tools to take advantage of new technologies, and to make sure that you're future-proofed for as things continue to move forward. So it naturally leads to a streamlining and harmonization of process, and then the ability to automate further from there. So again, it's just an incremental, let's move ourselves closer to where we want to be. So now if we look at outcomes, to summarize why why you would want to do a finance transformation and move yourself to a modern technology platform, what it gives you is you're able to get immediate value, or where you want to look is, how can I get immediate value in reduced costs, being future-proof for further change, and creating a more attractive work environment, so that I can better manage my talent and also have access to information faster. I just want to spend a minute on the managing talent. In the transformations that I've been involved in, I think that particularly the very first really big transformation I did, I was surprised at the impact that it had on attracting and retaining talent. In the transformation that I'm talking about, this organization made it very clear up front that a part of the reason that they were doing this is that they were going to be able to reduce staff. It was a company that is in the UK. They're sort of in the Midlands, in a not particularly attractive area. So they had always had a very hard time attracting talent. Once they started this transformation and the vision of what they were doing, where they were headed, what they were, what they were trying to accomplish became clear to the industry, they were flooded with applications for people who wanted to be a part of this. And they were just shocked because they were really surprised but the word had gotten around, and people wanted to be a part of what they were doing, where they were headed, and the sort of the new approach that they were taking. So I think that you can't underestimate that you are with a transformation. One of the key outcomes that you're trying to get is you want to create a better work environment. You want to be giving the people who work for you and in your organizations an opportunity to do more, to understand new technologies and how they can use them, and to free them up from some of the mundane things that they might not like to do, and really be able to be focused on more strategic initiatives. It was an incredible outcome, and I think it's going to be very important as we do get into sort of talent wars with other industries, because actuarial talent is attractive to data science, and go work at Google and use the same types of skills that you would use as an actuary. So anyway, so if I go back to some of those buzzwords that we started with at the top, RPA, which is process automation, robotic process automation. IoT is the Internet of Things, machine learning, ML, and then AI is artificial intelligence. You're not going to be able to take advantage of these if you don't lay the right foundation. And for many organizations, you have 30-plus-year-old systems, and you're relying on those for key financial information. So once again, it's just really critical to create that platform that's going to allow you to leverage the new digital world and be ready to be a leader in the evolution of the business. You need to transform internally in advance of the industry changes that are happening and are going to happen. So really making progress in becoming an organization that knows how to use technology to innovate and drive value is really important. So just wanted to share a case study with you, which is the Phoenix Group, which is a UK company in the Midlands. They went through a systems transformation in preparation for Solvency II, is what really drove their the decision to do this. They implemented our technology platform, just starting from their admin systems and going straight through to feeding the results into their QRTs and into the ledger for reporting. So often we think of systems in pieces, but for each of the integration points that you have, there's risk and complexity introduced. So Phoenix opted for an end-to-end automated solution, which really gave them that sort of modern platform for everything, and it put them in a position to continually innovate and adopt new ideas and technologies quickly and efficiently. So to illustrate the scale of what they accomplished, their entire quarterly valuation is automated. Each quarter they run more than 3 million ALM projections to support internal and external reporting. And they do that in 2 to 2.5 days due to the scalability of the solution, and that the fact that the only manual interactions that they have are that they still have some manual adjustments that they do, but everything's finished running. They take those manual adjustments and feed those into the solution so that they become a part of the final data warehouse, so that they have the integrity and control there. To illustrate what that meant from a performance perspective, this is sort of the before and after, but just to give you a sense of where things were. They initiated the transformation. Solvency II was sort of their excuse. They'd been wanting to do this. They're a serial acquirer, and so they just had a big mess. They had 77 different actuarial models, and the idea of updating 77 models to be Solvency II compliant, that was going to be way more expensive than just starting over. So they had a perfect opportunity, and I recognize that it was an unusual situation. Most people don't have that kind of a mess. But they did, and so they took the opportunity to say, we're just going to start fresh, and we're going to start from the bottom, redefine what are our methodologies, how do we want to build this out, how do we get a platform that we can build off of. So the results that they got out of this were pretty phenomenal. You can see here they had the process that they had in place before, and this was just for Solvency I. It took them 5.5 months to produce their quarterly results. Clearly they weren't quarterly since it took 5.5 months, but and now they do that in 2.5 days. So it's it's just a really dramatic change. But so that 5.5 months, by the way, was not to actually report the results. That was just generating the information. So and then the elapsed time, the man hours, reduced by more than 95%. So they did reduce staff, as I mentioned. That was one of their key goals. But they also, more importantly, have been able to redeploy staff to more strategic initiatives. And right after they did this, they started up some new change programs where they looked at how they could provide and enhance some value to customers by changing some of the benefits that they were providing. They acquired 2 more blocks of business. And so they've just been able to utilize that staff to be looking at more strategic initiatives. So it was a real success story for them, and it was, that project was just, from my personal perspective, it was the highlight of my career. It was a really great project, very exciting to work on. So finally, just wrapping up here, I want to provide a few thoughts on how you can get started. I mentioned before that in most cases the cultural changes are the most challenging, but they're also the most important part. And this provides a description between what change and transformation are to really illustrate this point. So you have to focus on embedding the change into the fabric of the organization so that it becomes a new way of working. And again, Phoenix was a really good example of this, in that they really set this vision of, this is what we want to do. Yes, we have to be Solvency II compliant, and we have a big mess, and we need to fix that. But we want to be a leader. We want to have a platform that is going to allow us to grow, that is going to allow us to achieve what our strategic initiatives are. And they communicated that really clearly to the entire organization. And they are doing that from their front office operations to the back office operations. It's their vision, it's where they're going. Through this program, the finance director was the sponsor of the program, and every week he provided like a blog update to all of to the entire organization of, this is what we've done, this is what we've accomplished, and remember, this is what we're trying to achieve. Their chief exec came and spoke to the group working on the transformation at least quarterly, and reminded everybody of why this was so important and what they were where they were headed. So that kind of communication and that trying to instill, this is going to be our new way of working, these are our values, this is where we're headed, is really critical to getting that cultural change to work. Another transformation that I worked on that was not quite so successful did not really focus on that. It was more focused on it was probably more of a change program, where it was just, we need to move from A to B, and there wasn't an excitement about why, there wasn't a communication about why. It was a really challenging program, and not too long after they finished, probably within 2 years, they were a lot of the old process and the old, I'm going to pull stuff out and use Excel to do some other stuff, they just kind of fell right back into that. So you have to change the culture of the organization for this to really be successful. Okay, but one thing to be clear is that the difference between change and transformation, it doesn't mean am I doing a big bang change or a big bang, or am I doing incremental change? You can still get to where you're going incrementally. You just have to make sure that everybody in the organization understands where it is that you're going. So one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you are thinking about, how do I get the most value quickly? And it may be that you say, there's a particular block of business that we have where we're really struggling with it, so let's do that first. Let's use that as our example and transform that. It could be that you say that it needs to be our IFRS 17 implementation is what we want to do. And so we're going to layer on top of our existing modeling environment a new platform for IFRS 17, and that'll start to move us in the right direction. So finally, speaking of IFRS 17, I'll put in a little plug for how we would do this. And we have provided, so we've taken our platform that we've built and that has all of the big data solutions and the automation and machine learning and all of those things, and you can just plug into that with, take your existing models that you're already using for Solvency II and all of your other cash flow projections, take those cash flows, feed them into this environment, and then that allows you to start to take advantage of that modern platform. So it gets a quick way to adopt state-of-the-art technology without a huge investment. So with that, just finally, before I turn over to Dermot, the word transformation often has a really negative connotation, but with a successfully run program, it really generates enthusiasm within the organization and within the industry. So thank you for your time and your attention. Turn it over to Dermot.